The Democrat Party is in full meltdown mode right now, and honestly, it's kind of hilarious to watch. For years, they've strutted around claiming to be the moral compass of America, champions of accountability, defenders of the rule of law, you name it. But then Biden goes and pardons his son Hunter, and poof, whatever was left of that holier-than-thou image is out the window. Now you've got half the party tying themselves in knots, trying to justify it, while the other half is nervously whispering, guys, this might not look so good. And let's call it for what it is, hypocrisy, plain and simple. These are the same people who spent years wagging their fingers at everyone else, and now they're doing the exact thing they've been screaming about. The whole rules for thee, but not for me vibe is so on brand, it's funny. Almost. And what better place to kick things off than The View, the daytime talk show where nuance goes to die. Let's see how they're spinning this one.
Listen, I get it. I mean, we got a convicted felon as president.
Yes.
It's hard for me to...
Yes, say it. Yes.
And I know that you know who's been asking, are you going to pardon the January 6th folks? Actually, probably not. But I kind of feel like I look at the list of folks that who pardoned during the first term. He granted 237 acts of clemency, 143 pardons, and 94 commutations, including Michael Flynn, Roger Stone, Paul Manafort, Charles Kushner, Steve Bannon, George Papadopoulos, Albert Pirro, and Lil Wayne.
Everybody.
I forgot about Lil Wayne.
Yeah. And Lil Wayne. So it is a president's prerogative. People can say, why are you doing that? But that's what presidents do every time. They do it every time they pardon somebody. So I'm not sure why the pearl clutching is happening now, except that that's what folks want to do. But it seems kind of foolish. You kind of knew he was going to do it, given all that's happened, but maybe I'm just kooky.
All right, let's start with Whoopi's claim that we got a convicted felon as president. Yes, Donald Trump has been convicted on multiple felony counts of falsifying business records tied to hush money payments during his 2016 campaign. That is a fact. But let's take a closer look at what we got here. The Manhattan DA who brought these charges, Alvin Bragg, is a Democrat, as is the judge presiding over the case. This isn't some bipartisan pursuit of justice. It's a political witch hunt through and through. The charges themselves stretch the law to its limits, connecting state business record statutes to federal campaign finance violations in a way that's rarely, if ever, been done before. Would this case have been brought against someone who wasn't Donald Trump? Doubtful. So, yes, Trump is technically a convicted felon, but the investigation and trial scream political motivation. Now, let's compare that to the Biden's pardon of Hunter. One is the result of a politically charged investigation carried out entirely by Democrats. The other is a direct act of clemency to shield the president's own son. These are not the same. Biden's pardon obliterates any claim the Democrat Party has to being a party of accountability or the rule of law. It's not just bending the rules, it's shattering them for personal gain. If you're a regular American, this sends a clear message. The rules don't apply if you're in power. Then there's Whoopi's list of Trump pardons. Flynn, Manafort, Kushner, Papadopoulos, and even Lil Wayne. She trots this out as if it somehow justifies Biden's pardon of Hunter. But let's be real. Trump's pardons, controversial as they were political moves aligned with his agenda. They did not involve family members. That's a crucial ethical line Biden crossed. By framing Trump's actions as equivalent to Biden's, Whoopi is engaging in textbook whataboutism. It's a diversion tactic to draw attention away from the unique ethical breach Biden's pardon represents. No amount of listing Trump's clemency actions changes the fact that Biden used presidential powers to personally intervene in his son's legal troubles. And then there's the whole presidents do this every time narrative. That's just flat out wrong. Pardons are supposed to address systemic failures or miscarriages of justice, not serve as a get out of jail free card for your own family. Trying to pass this off as a routine act is a lazy deflection from the ethical disaster it represents.
Pleased with the hypocritical pearl clutching by this country. Eric Holder, I think, said it really well. No U.S. attorney would have charged this case given the underlying facts that have been investigated for 5 years. Less than, get this, 0.09% of people are indicted, prosecuted, charged, and found guilty of lying on a gun form. The only reason that Hunter Biden was gone after and charged, indicted, and found guilty was because his name wasn't Joe Smith, it was Hunter Biden. And that's the truth of it. You've got Eric Holder saying it, you've got former prosecutors like myself saying it. So,
why didn't he admit it earlier?
Wait.
I think one of the reasons why he didn't admit it earlier was because he didn't know that the felon-in-chief would become the next president.
Wow, there is a lot to unpack here. First, Sonny kicks things off by calling out the hypocritical pearl clutching of this country. Really? That's how you want to start a defense of Hunter Biden's pardon? By dismissing half the nation's legitimate concerns as overreacting moralists? Calling people pearl clutchers isn't an argument. It's a lazy insult designed to shut down the conversation before it even starts. It's classic divisive rhetoric. Paint your critics as hysterical so you don't have to address what they're actually saying. And then there's a claim that no U.S. attorney would have charged this case. Sonny leans on Eric Holder, of all people, as her authority here, a former Obama administration official with a clear political bias. But even if that were true, does that somehow excuse lying on a federal gun form? It's still a crime. Sonny's argument boils down to, well, these cases are rarely prosecuted, so what? Breaking the law is breaking the law. The rarity of prosecution doesn't mean Hunter should get a pass. That's a slippery slope where laws become meaningless for all well-connected. Then she hits us with a pity play. The only reason he was prosecuted is because his name isn't Joe Smith. Oh, please, come on. If anything, Hunter's last name has shielded him for years. If he were Joe Smith, he wouldn't have had the resources, the connections, or the president of the United States stepping in to save him. Sonny flips reality on its head here, trying to paint Hunter as the victim when he's benefited from privilege every step of the way. It's a textbook appeal to pity, a tactic that makes us feel sorry for someone who's clearly not the underdog in this scenario. And let's not forget her justification for the pardon. Sonny basically says it's okay to circumvent justice because he's the president's son. Excuse me, this isn't about compassion. It's about abuse of power. The justice system is supposed to apply equally to everyone. When the president uses his office to shield his own family, it's not just unethical, it's a slap in the face of every American who doesn't have that kind of privilege. Sonny's defense boils down to, well, he's his dad, so it's fine. No, it's not. Then she pivots to Trump, calling him the felon-in-chief. That's not even relevant to the conversation. It's a blatant red herring, throwing Trump into the mix to deflect from the issue at hand. Yes, Trump has been convicted, but that doesn't make Biden's pardon of Hunter any less problematic. It's like saying, look over there, so we don't focus on what's happening. This isn't about Trump. It's about Biden using presidential power to protect his son. Now, here's a kicker. Sonny's entire argument is riddled with logical fallacies. Ad hominem attacks, straw man arguments, appeals to pity, and special pleading all over the place. She's not addressing the actual concerns. She's trying to manipulate the narrative. And what's worse, she's normalizing the idea that justice is optional if you have the right last name. But what else can we expect from an actual descendant of slave owners?
When he was on the show, I told him I hoped he pardoned Hunter.
I remember.
You did, I remember.
I went to speak at the Biden Institute in Delaware like a month later, and we talked on the phone, and I told him I hoped he pardoned Hunter. I left him a handwritten note at his desk at the University of Delaware and told him I hoped he pardoned Hunter. And the reason I thought it was important is because I wanted him to hear from people who support him and respect him, which I do, that some of us, I'd say most of us, think it's okay for him to pardon Hunter because of what you just said, that so many of the people who committed this crime do not get prosecuted. Imagine the guilt that Joe Biden has to live with, thinking that his son, his only surviving son, is getting prosecuted because he is his son.
Ana Navarro starts by admitting she personally urged Joe Biden to pardon his son Hunter. She even left a handwritten note, and yet she still claims to be a Republican. Really? A supposed GOP voice out here advocating for Biden Nation? If she's this biased, how can we take anything she says seriously? This isn't about principles or fairness. It's about personal loyalty to the Biden family. Right away, Ana loses credibility as an objective commentator. Then she pulls the emotional manipulation card, talking about how Hunter is Joe Biden's only surviving son and how much guilt the president must feel. Look, nobody's denying that Biden has faced personal tragedy, but that doesn't give him a free pass to circumvent justice. The law is supposed to apply equally to everyone, not bent to protect the president's family. Invoking Biden's personal pain to justify the pardon is an appeal to pity. Pure emotional spin designed to make us forget the actual ethical ethical breach here. And let's talk about our argument that lying on a federal gun form is rarely prosecuted. She's right, it's uncommon, but so what? That doesn't mean it's not illegal. Hunter Biden broke the law, period. The rarity of enforcement doesn't make the crime any less serious, especially when the president's intervention raises huge questions about favoritism and abuse of power. This argument is a false equivalence, plain and simple. If anything, Hunter's status as the president's son demands greater scrutiny, not less. Then there's this gem. Ana says she wanted Biden to hear from people who support and respect him. Translation, she's repping for Team Biden. For someone who claims to be a Republican, she's doing a stellar job cheerleading for the other side. If Ana wants to be taken seriously as a political commentator, she might want to dial down the blatant partisanship, especially when she's supposed to be the Republican voice on an impartial political commentary show. Finally, Ana leans heavily on rhetorical manipulation. She selectively frames the issue by focusing on how rare these prosecutions are, conveniently ignoring the bigger picture. Hunter Biden is benefiting from political privilege. She shifts the conversation from legality to sympathy, using emotional appeals to distract from the ethical issues at play. And by defending Biden so enthusiastically, she exposes her own bias. This isn't objective commentary, it's partisan spin.
Why lie about it for so long?
I'd stop calling it a lie.
Okay, why repeatedly say you're not going to and you do? And secondarily, for the part of this country, half of it that doesn't support Biden, doesn't know him personally, doesn't get to have phone calls, and they're just looking at a system that seems like it only benefits the people who are in power.
I'm going to say,
what precedent does that set?
Well, here's what it sets. It's a precedent for all of us to open our eyes because we've elected someone who is in a similar situation, who didn't have a drug problem, who knew what he was doing, who clearly stood and said, I can do this. And he did it. So I think for many, many reasons, this is very different than any other situation that we have ever dealt with. Because when we're talking about who gets a pardon and who doesn't get a pardon, this man, I think Biden had no intentions of pardoning Hunter. And I think the more stuff that went down, I think he said, well, why am I busting my behind to stay straight and do this when nobody else is, when no one else is doing it?
I think he thought he was going to win, and I just wish he would have been honest with the public.
He said he wasn't going to pardon him even after he lost.
Whoopi's offense of Joe Biden is a mess of spin, speculation, and outright deflection. First, she takes issue with calling Biden's repeated denial of a pardon for Hunter as a lie. Like, really? If you say over and over that you're not going to do something and then you do it, that's the definition of a lie. But Whoopi tries to reframe it as saying, I'd stop calling it a lie. Why? Because it doesn't fit the narrative? This is straight up semantic manipulation, changing the terms to avoid addressing the real issue. Biden broke his word. Call it what it is. Then she pivots saying, this pardon is a precedent for all of us to open our eyes. Open our eyes to what exactly? That the powerful protect their own? Whoopi's trying to spin this as some kind of moral awakening when really it's just a glaring example of double standards in action. This isn't a teaching moment, it's a blatant abuse of power, and no amount of rhetorical gymnastics is going to change that. And of course, she drags Trump into the conversation, saying, we've elected somebody who was in a similar situation, who didn't have a drug problem, who knew what he was doing. Okay, all right, let's unpack it. First, Trump's legal issues, while extensive, are the result of politically charged investigations. Biden's case is fundamentally different. He directly used presidential power to shield his own son. Comparing the two is a false equivalence. Whoopi's just throwing Trump in here as a distraction, hoping we'll look away from the fact that Biden's actions are ethically indefensible. Also, what does Hunter's drug use have to do with anything? She's appealing for emotion and empathy by bringing up his struggles with addiction, which at the end of the day, it doesn't make any difference whether you're addicted to anything or whatever you're addicted to, but that doesn't make you immune to the law. Then she claims Biden had no intentions of pardoning Hunter. Says who? This is pure speculation. The facts are simple. Biden repeatedly said he wouldn't pardon his son, and then he did. Speculating about his supposed intentions doesn't change that. It's an argument from ignorance, assuming something is true just because there's no evidence to the contrary. Actions speak louder than words, and Biden's actions directly contradict his promises. That's not reluctance, that's deceit. Whoopi then suggests Biden might have thought, why am I busting my behind to stay straight and do this when nobody else is? What? This is yet another emotional appeal, trying to paint Biden as frustrated and righteous. But even if that were true, and there's no evidence it is, frustration isn't a valid excuse for abusing presidential power. Nobody else doing the right thing doesn't justify you doing the wrong thing.
He's the president, the sitting president, and he can do whatever he wants to until his time is up.
I don't like that
That's what-
president. Donald Trump's about to be president.
Well,
I
that's
don't
what.
like
But
that
that's
precedent.
what. That's what the. That's
The presidency
what the
should be bigger than his feelings.
You know,
and even his
it
immediate
should
family.
be, but
He's
it
a
is
very small
You know,
man.
this
That
is
will
a.
never
This is
happen
a.
with Donald
Yeah.
Trump.
This.
Ever.
I can't believe that this is what's freaking people out. That this is the thing that says, oh
Precedents
well,
matter.
see.
Precedents do
You know,
matter.
it does, but I'm noticing the man who would not normally be able to even vote for president is the president.
Because people don't trust him.
Whoopi says, he's the president. He can do whatever he wants until his time is up. Excuse me? That's not just wrong. That borders on fascist authoritarianism. The idea that a leader can act without accountability simply because of their position is the exact kind of thinking Whoopi and others rail against when criticizing Trump or other leaders they dislike. Yet here she is, openly defending the notion when it applies to Biden. That's not a defense, it's hypocrisy. And let's be clear, while the president does have clemency powers, they are not above criticism. Those powers were never intended to be used as a tool to protect family members. Framing this as he can do whatever he wants normalizes authoritarian behavior. It's disturbing, especially coming from someone who frequently warns against threats to democracy. If anything, this kind of rhetoric undermines the very principles of accountability and transparency that democracy relies on. Then Whoopi goes on to say, I can't believe this is what people are freaking out about. Really? That's your take? This is a classic straw man argument, misrepresenting critics' concerns to make them seem trivial. The outrage isn't about the fact that Biden used his pardon powers. It's about how he used them to shield his own son from accountability. This isn't about pearl clutching. It's about the erosion of trust in the justice system. By dismissing these concerns as overreactions, Whoopi sidesteps the real issue. And of course, she drags Trump into the conversation again. They always do, saying, the man who would not normally be able to even vote for president is the president. What does that even mean? This is a red herring, plain and simple. Trump has nothing to do with Biden's decision to pardon Hunter. But why bring it up? Whoopi is trying to shift the focus away from Biden and onto a polarizing figure. It's a distraction tactic designed to derail the conversation and stir up partisan emotions. And when Alyssa points out the importance of precedent, Whoopi dismisses it, effectively saying, well, Trump was president. That's another red herring and a false equivalence. The question isn't about Trump's presidency. It's about the precedent Biden's actions set. If presidents can use their power to protect their own family members, what does that mean for future administrations? Whoopi doesn't address that because she knows it's indefensible. Instead, she distracts with irrelevant comparisons. Anyway, folks, you tell me what you think in the comments down below. Have a terrific day. Peace.